Welcome into Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Today on the show, can the Braves get to 300, finish them, and has it been top 10 or better? It's all next. It's Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Hitting Hard is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We ask you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Get the latest episodes of Hitting Hard as soon as they become available. Give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Also, check us out on the SiriusXM app as well. So, this may be pie in the sky. This may be wishful thinking and all these good kinds of things, but the Braves are off to not just a good start overall record and obviously been standing on the road, but they've had a really good start to the home run ball this year. Now, look, we know the Braves are obviously one of the best home run hitting teams in Major League Baseball. They currently sit third in Major League Baseball as far as number of homers hit with 97. Now, that puts them on a pace of 266 homers for the season. So they've hit 97 homers in 59 games. That's a 266 homer pace for the year. Now, again, the Dodgers, are over 100 home runs. Tampa Bay is over 100 home runs. It's crazy to think about that the Braves, with almost 100 homers, are third. But I wonder about this question. So we like to speculate and think about some different things here on the show. Could the Braves get to 300 homers? Could the Braves find themselves at 300 homers when the season is done? Now, if you look, like I said, they're at 266. So that pacing would give them the all-time franchise record, right? That would be the all-time franchise record for home runs in a season by the Atlanta Braves. And that would be an outstanding number. Only two teams in baseball history have hit 300 homers. That was the 2019 Minnesota Twins, who have the all-time record, and the 2019 New York Yankees. Funny thing about the Yankees team is that they didn't get that big of a year from Aaron Judge. I think Aaron Judge only hit 26 homers that year. But that Twins team had five guys that hit 30 or more homers. Nelson Cruz and Kepler and Sano and, all those guys, and Buxton even. That team was just loaded up and down with power. But if you look at where the Braves are right now, at the pace that they are headed on, really you have a couple of guys in the lineup that really probably haven't taken off yet. We've seen Austin Riley have some moments with the home run ball, but it doesn't feel like he's had that kind of breakout home run campaign, or he's had that consistent home run stroke this year. Now, he's got 10 homers. Okay, and he's got 30 RBI, but only hitting 262 with a 329 on base and only a 450 slugging percentage. It doesn't feel like he's had that run where you find, 5 homers in a 7-day period for him. And we know that he can be a 40 home run hitter. So you feel pretty confident about the fact that, okay, he could get himself on a hot homer streak. Obviously, Murphy and Olson have been outstanding this year, the two guys they got over the last couple of years from the Oakland A's. Ronnie's had a really good, start. Again, 12 homers thus far. Ozzy's had a good start thus far. Rosario's got 8 homers, and he's found his home run stroke of late and obviously hit the grand slam over the weekend to win them a game. So, he's starting to find a little bit of that power stroke. Michael Harris is a guy who has struggled quite a bit, only hitting a .168, and he's only got the two homers this year. So you figure that, okay, maybe he can find a little bit more of his home run streak. Darno has only hit 1 homer for the year, and you figure, okay, I mean, he'll pop a few, before the end of the year. So there's some definite upside when you look at could the Braves have an outside shot of 300? Now, look, Do I think the Braves are going to hit 300 homers as a team? I don't think so. I think that they will set the franchise record when all is said and done, and that would be a huge accomplishment in itself. And again, over the last few years, you've seen that this team, has turned itself into one of the best power hitting teams, and all of their most home runs as a franchise have been over the last, 4 years. I mean, the 2019 team, 2022 team, those have been the top 2 home run teams of all time. That, again, over the last few years, you've seen that them evolve into an offense that plays a lot of long ball. But the Braves have a lineup that up and down that lineup is one of the deepest in baseball. You have right now 6 guys that have double figures in home runs, basically a third of the way through the season. So we're a little bit past the 1/3 point, but you look, Marcel, Ronnie, Riley, Albies, Olson, Murphy, all with double figure homers just over 1/3 of the way through the season. So if you pace those guys out, you could literally have 6 guys that are on pace for a 30 homer season. And it doesn't feel like Riley's caught fire just yet, right? I mean, he's had his struggles, but it doesn't feel like his home run ball, it's been in spurts, but it doesn't feel like his home run ball has consistently been there. So, look, it's possible Braves have an outside shot, even at 266, though. If they keep this kind of pace for the year, it will break their records. And look, it's obviously one of the deepest teams in baseball. They're off to an incredible start. But, look, a lot of last place teams, and we'll talk more about the schedule here in just a minute, but a lot of last place teams that are coming up on the schedule that, frankly, are not very good. Tigers, Rockies, some of those teams that are really bottom feeders in the world of baseball. This may be an opportunity where, as the weather's warmed up now, balls are flying out of ballparks across Major League Baseball. The pitching is still a little bit suspect. You're having last place teams. You may see some guys that are just not capable of being at the major league level through the summertime here. There is some definite opportunity, and we've seen the Braves get hot during the summertime over the last few years. Summertime has been one of those times where the Braves have really turned it on. And it was funny because Snitker had that same meeting that he had last year with the Braves where, in Arizona on June 1st, a year ago, he had that clubhouse meeting where they were 23-27 and 10.5 games out of first place. And then they ended up going 78-34 after that. So maybe they turned it on, after losing 3 out of 4 on the road. They've been 2-0 since then. Maybe they turned it on. But certainly it doesn't feel like that's the craziest number that we could come up with. Again, a 266 pace is certainly doable for this team. But if you factor in some of the guys that maybe have not gotten as hot so far, maybe 300 is doable. Maybe that would be a hell of an accomplishment if they could find a way to get to 300 homers. But again, even breaking the all-time franchise record would be a heck of an accomplishment as well. All right, let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel, as this episode is sponsored by FanDuel. And listen, FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, and as we're in the NBA Finals right now, Heat, Nuggets, all the action going on, NHL hockey playoffs are going on right now. If you're a new customer to FanDuel, sign up now and claim your no-sweat first bet, where you can get as much as $2,500 if your first bet doesn't win. Now, FanDuel is a safe, secure, super easy-to-use app. Obviously, you can bet on everything from money lines to props to who's going to be the leading scorer for the Nuggets, on Wednesday night, everything in between. So if you're a new customer, head to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON, and claim your no-sweat first bet, where you can get as much as $2,500 if your first bet doesn't win. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON. FanDuel's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So as the Braves get ready to take on the New York Mets, and this obviously an important series really for the New York Mets, again, I just talked about the idea of the Braves had that, meeting. It was a year ago in Arizona where they were kind of floundering around and then had the big start. And obviously they had a meeting here the other day, and they're 2-0 since then. But it really does start to feel like when you look at the struggles of the New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies, that if they don't make some hay in this month against the Braves, that there's going to be a lot of separation. And right now, the Braves obviously are going to play the Mets for the next 3 games. They take on the Phillies come later on in the month, June 20th, 21st, and 22nd. But in between, Washington, Detroit, Colorado, that's 2 of those teams are in last place in their division, right? It does feel like, and I don't want to say that the division will be over, as what was his name, Sal Bag of Donuts said last Memorial Day, but it definitely feels like with the Braves, the way that they're playing right now, with the way the schedule sets up for the Braves, playing some of these last place teams, the Mets and Phillies, if they don't make some hay this month in these series against the Braves, that this thing could start to get away from the Mets and Phillies. Mets and Phillies right now are, right now the Mets are what is it? 5.5 back of the Braves. Phillies are 7.5 back. And that was without not playing last night for the Braves. So again, we saw the Braves go on this miraculous run last year when they were 10.5 games out. And it wasn't that the Mets played bad, but again, 78-34 after that meeting in Arizona, that's an absurd number. Like, that's a ridiculous winning percentage. And if the Mets or Phillies have to be somewhere close to that, I'm not saying that nothing is impossible, but does it feel like that the Mets or Phillies have that kind of winning streak in them where they could go 78-34 over 100 and whatever, 10, 11 games or whatever? Does it feel like they could do that? I know they've got the talent to do it, but you haven't seen that before out of those organizations. And I do think that there's a lot of dysfunction from those organizations, that they just don't have that winning DNA that the Braves have, right? I mean, and look, we give the benefit of the doubt to the Braves because they've had all the success, because they've been able to win the division 5 times in a row, because that they came back from 10.5 games down at Memorial Day. I mean, they've done all of these things and accomplished all these things. We haven't seen that from the Mets or Phillies. So do I think that the Mets or Phillies have one of these 78-34 marks in them? No, I don't. I don't think that they have that kind of mark that's available to them. And that's why, again, in this month, when you look at, okay, you better take advantage of your head-to-head matchups, because the Braves are playing some last place teams. Braves are going to have this stretch where we talked about this last week on the show, that they're going to play some of the weaker teams in Major League Baseball over the month of June. So in Philadelphia and New York, if you can take care of business against Philly and New York this month, certainly I think the Braves will hold serve against, again, the Tigers and the Rockies and Washington and some of the other teams that they play this month, Cincinnati. I certainly think that they will hold serve, but you could really start to deliver some knockout blows. And I understand the division can't be wrapped up and done, by the time July starts. But certainly you get to the halfway point of the season and you start to inch your way to it. And again, you find yourself 8-10 games ahead. I mean, again, the Phillies are already 7.5 back. They've got a -31 run differential. The Braves are a +63. So it's a 94 run differential difference between Atlanta and Philadelphia. It's a 75 run differential between the Mets and Braves. And I don't think that that is going to change anytime soon. And, obviously some of the guys that they have put a whole crap ton of money in, Verlander's got what, 45 million this year and 40 something million next year. And he's got a 4.25 ERA. And we're going to see him in the third game of this series. It's going to be a very fascinating series where, again, good pitching matchups. Third game of the series is going to be Spencer Strider versus Justin Verlander. Maybe the best young pitcher in baseball against a first ballot Hall of Famer. So I take nothing away from the Mets and Phillies. I thought at the beginning of the season that this division would find itself being a whole lot closer. And I thought the biggest stumbling block for the Braves was the fact that some of these teams have gotten a lot better in the division. But so far, it's been, again, the Marlins have been the second best team in this division right now, with the Mets and Phillies just kind of playing catch up. So this could be an important time for the Atlanta Braves, that if they, can take advantage of the way that this schedule works in the month of June, that they could find themselves with playing Philadelphia, with playing the New York Mets, they could find themselves really starting to separate themselves from the rest of the division. And obviously we saw yesterday, Max Fried has been moved to the 60-day IL. Michael Soroka was sent down to Gwinnett after that start he had in Arizona. So still looking at, okay, what are we going to do about our pitching? But maybe, maybe some of that softens and lightens if you can find yourself separating yourself in the division, starting to pad and starting to put some more games between you and the Mets and Phillies in the division, where, again, you feel like you can get away with some bullpen games, or the Dylan Dodds and Jared Schusters of the world. Because we're right back into that cycle where, okay, we have to figure out a way to find 2 starting spots in our rotation. And the Braves are going to play, 13 straight games. Like, they won't have a day off again until 2 weeks from yesterday. So they're going to play a whole bunch of games coming up here. But still, it's against the Tigers and the Rockies and some of these last place teams. And if you can handle your business against New York, if you can handle your business when they go up to Philadelphia, it does feel like that those teams are kind of floundering around. And unless I see some kind of big turnaround in what those teams are going to do, it does feel like that the Braves could really, by the time we get into July, could really start to separate themselves and put some distance between themselves and Philadelphia in New York. I know a division can't be won in the month of June, but you can certainly make your life a lot more easy. And certainly, again, the Braves probably need some of that when they're trying to figure out a couple of spots in their rotation that just are not really getting kind of better, not really kind of getting any easier, with Max Fried now on the 60-day, Michael Soroka, being sent back down. Things are not easy, but if you can pad your schedule and figure out a way to get separation, that may be the key. All right, as you listen in to Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, make sure that you go into whatever podcast you're listening on and let us know that you're an everyday listener. So leave us a note that you're an everydayer, as we like to call them, and certainly leave us a message that you listen in 5 days a week. We do thank you so much for being a part of our ever-growing community, and we thank you so much for being a part of the show every day of the week. So let us know that you're an everydayer to the show, and let us know that you're a part of our community. We thank you so much for being a part of it. So, top 10 or better. So the Atlanta Falcons, and this is from Mark Sessler, and I don't know who Mark Sessler is, but he writes for NFL.com. He's the host of the Around the NFL podcast for them. He's got his top 10 list of most improved rosters in the NFL. Now, he's got Jets, Browns, Ravens, Steelers. He's got the Lions, Texans, Colts, and Bears, and all this good kind of stuff. And then he's also got on this list the Atlanta Falcons. And I'll read you what his write-up is real quick. Falcons have morphed into a hammer. They emit the vibe of an old-school Belichickian Patriot squad ready to blast through teams like it's 2001. A mountain of cap space allowed them to splurge, but the pieces fit. The front office wisely sealed up their young talent with new deals for Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry. Falcons then peered beyond to pad their offense, getting Arthur Smith's favorite, former pupil, Jonnu Smith, Taylor Heineke, then pumped up the defense with Jesse Bates, David Onyemata, Calais Campbell, Jeff Okudah, and then they talk about their draft picks, Matthew Bergeron, Bijan Robinson, with Tyler Algier, and it's unclear. They could lead the league in rushing attempts. It's unclear because Desmond Ridder may or may not be the answer. Okay, so let's address a few of these things out there. Do I think that they have one of the better, more improved rosters in the NFL? Certainly. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that. I think that goes without saying. Again, if you have that much cap space and you have the 8th pick of the draft and second round, you should be one of the better improved rosters, right? Okay. The problem is the fact that we have to improve this roster drastically, year over year. But okay, again, we'll take that aside. Now, the locking up of the young players, their young core, right? McGarry and Lindstrom. This is one of the first things that Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith talked about when they had the press conference at the Matt Ryan trade. They talked about the idea of not being able to sign their own players. And Foye Oluokun was a guy that they were not able to sign because of cap restrictions. And it's always funny because, again, it seems like the Falcons play under one salary cap and everybody else plays under another salary cap. Like the Falcons are the only team that seems like they adhere to the salary cap rules and everybody else can just do whatever they want. Saints can sign whoever they want and teams can sign whoever they want. But anyway, that's a separate discussion for another day. But they talk specifically about the fact of signing your own free agents and not letting these guys walk out of the building because of financial constraints. And it was important to bring McGarry and obviously extend Lindstrom. And while those things may look like that they were no-brainers to do, if you didn't have the cap space, they could have been cap casualties. Lindstrom was a guy who might not have gotten the same type of extension had they not had the flexibility. Now, again, he was going to always get paid. He's arguably the best 1-2 guard in the entirety of the NFL. But could that have been from the Atlanta Falcons? Certainly they would have sold their souls if they had to not be able to sign McGarry or some other guys. They would have sold their soul to keep Lindstrom in place. But unfortunately for the Falcons, they didn't have to make that kind of decision. Fortunately, they didn't have to pick either guy. They could grab both of them. So that was one of the first things Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith talked about when they were going into this, cap purgatory phase of everything. They wanted to sign their own guys. Now, as far as the, Belichickian old school, ready to blast through teams like it's 2001, well, that's what the Falcons do. When you're unsettled at quarterback and you have a top 5 offensive line, you're going to play to your strengths. We know that Arthur Smith is a run-heavy offense anyway, right? He was that way in Tennessee. He's been that way in Atlanta. And whether that's personnel or what have you, and maybe, at times lack of quarterback, again, that's our ID. That's our MO. That's how we win football games, right? We lean on our offensive line. We've got good running backs that may not blow you away, but Tyler Algier with 1,000 yards in his first year. Bijan Robinson could be another 1,000-yard back in his first year. Yeah, that's the way we win football games is we slow things down and we grind them out. When you have Marcus Mariota at quarterback, I mean, you're not going to throw it 500-600 times. So yeah, that's how we, win football games. I mean, yeah, it's an old school mentality, but it won Arthur Smith a lot of games offensively when he was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee. They leaned on Derrick Henry in that offensive line, to have a 2,000-yard running back. Benefit for us is that we have a more versatile group of weapons, right? Remember, positionless football, like we talked about last week, that guys are not just running backs or tight ends or whatever like that. They can play all over the field and have different different things that they do in the offense. So, again, we're not focused in on, what they necessarily are or are not as far as, your traditional types of players. And they say, again, the last line, with Tyler Algier already a backfield force, the Falcons are a logical candidate to lead the league in rushing attempts, especially when it's unclear if Desmond Ridder is the answer. Well, again, I'll say to that, we certainly are not going to trade an even swap of rushing attempts for Desmond Ridder as we had with Marcus Mariota. Like the attempts that we have rushing the football from the quarterback position will definitely go down. I mean, it's not going to be an even, okay, Mariota ran for whatever number of rushing attempts last year. We're going to just replace that with Desmond Ridder. Now, Desmond Ridder will have some design runs and he'll have some plays where he'll use his legs, but I definitely think that they want to use Desmond Ridder more in the pocket. So, again, could we lead the league in rushing attempts? Well, yeah. I mean, again, Bijan Robinson's going to pick up a lot of those carries that Marcus Mariota, Caleb Huntley had, and I think they're going to have more of a two-headed attack with a little bit of sprinkling in of Cordero Patterson in the mix and a very light sprinkling and dusting, if you will, of what Desmond Ridder will bring to this thing. But I think they want to become a more balanced offense. I think that they want to find themselves in a position where they can throw it a little bit more and feel like they have confidence in it, not have our quarterback falling to the ground and throwing a grenade up in the air to everybody. So, again, do I think that they are one of the more improved rosters in the NFL? Absolutely. Now let's hope it translates on the field. There's a lot of excitement in Flowery Branch. Guys are talking up a lot of exciting things. I'm hearing good things out of Ebiketie. He was talking to the media about, hey, things are slowing down. I'm a way further ahead right now than I have been, over last season. That I've had growth, and so these are all good signs. Now we just have to get the results. And look, again, I don't know if we have to be a playoff team. I don't know what the specific ramifications are, but certainly we've got to be a team that finds itself up and over 500. And I think the Falcons have the personnel to do it. And I think that they have one of the more improved rosters, certainly in our division, but maybe all across the NFL, is what NFL.com had to say. All right, well, thank you so much for making Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen. Be sure to go in and leave us a comment on whatever platform that you're listening on, that you are an everyday listener. So we like to call them our everydayers. So recognize yourself that you're an everyday listener to the program. We thank you so much for being a part of our ever-growing community and listen in 5 days a week to the show. We ask you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Get the latest episodes of Hittin Hard as soon as they become available. You can check us out on the SiriusXM app and give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. This has been Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked on Sports Atlanta.